let us know that you're here before we get diving in. It's been a minute since we've done a YouTube Live, so we get to experience that process every time we do it, but it's fun to be back, and I think we're going to be doing some more of these in the future, so we'll try to get a little bit better at these. But again, if you're just joining, make sure that you get involved with the chat. The whole purpose of this video is to answer questions and to be here for you guys as you get familiar with the KotaUL and just help us answer your questions. So, got a few people hopping on. But yeah, in the meantime, I guess in the comments, let us know your first impressions of the KotaUL, or if that's not fun, maybe what you did last weekend. So, yeah, give us some comments here. I'm gonna just kind of go in circles until I start seeing some comments popping in while we wait for a few people.
Why don't you tell us how the day has been going with the KotaUL launch so far?
Yeah, I'll probably report on how the Kota's been going, how the launch has gone throughout the whole video. But as of right now, we are sitting at almost 90,000 in pre-sales. So definitely super solid start. Right up there with our best start of all time, which would be the Ventus hoodie. So yeah, just super excited about how things have been starting off with this project. And it's been really fun because we just finished shipping the Ventuses. So if you're one of the people that are just getting your Ventuses, let us know what you think about that as well. I'd be happy to hear comments on that. And those of you that are still waiting, it should be shortly before you get your Ventuses. They're all out the door and in the carrier's hands at this point. So, okay. We get any comments yet? Do we have anyone? Nothing. We got 11 of you guys already on. Hopefully that goes. Oh, there we go. There you go. Someone knows Brigham.
Yeah.
Hi, Brigham. All right, that means I get to let you take over.
No, he's
MC.
he deserves no attention. I had lunch with him the other day. He's good.
He's had enough of your attention for a
No, hopefully I hope. I think he said he was going to get his on Friday.
Oh.
They were down in Vegas for the weekend, so hopefully he got it. Hopefully it fits.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're here to talk about this pack right here today, the KotaUL. We figured that we'll probably start off by just going over some of the highlights of the pack. And then from there, we just want you guys to be dumping questions in so that we can answer your questions on here. We've got quite a bit of information out there. Okay, I think we're back.
We're back.
Where do you think we got cut off there?
When you started talking about the Kota.
Okay.
So, sorry.
Okay, so
I was hoping that the phone would continue, and it just did not. Sorry, junk caller trying to call me.
So we're gonna back up here to where we're first starting about what the Kota, what we wanted to solve. I've been using travel packs for a long time, traveling a lot. A lot of us in the office have been. So for years now, we've been using these and just finding these areas where we just kept butting into issues. First issue is the comfort aspect. When you're traveling all day long, or when you're out on a backpacking trip or adventure, comfort becomes incredibly important. I've had a lot of experience with other travel packs out there, as well as a lot of the reviews you can read on other travel packs where people are just not comfortable, whether it be from the hip belts or frames or different things. So comfort was up front and center for us to solve with this pack. The other aspect was some of these travel packs would force you to travel and do things certain ways. Now, we've built this pack so that it can work on every adventure that we can take it on, really. It doesn't force you to organize a certain way. It doesn't force you to use it a certain way. So those are the two big things that we wanted to talk about. So I'm going to let Brigham here talk for a second about what we did to confront and make this pack as comfortable as possible. And while he's doing that, keep dumping in comments. The more comments we can get in here, the more we can jump into the comments and answer your specific questions. So, all right, Brigham.
So we're going comfort first.
Let's talk about comfort first. What do we do for comfort?
Well, so start looking at the things that really come in contact with the body, the things that support the load, carry the load on the body. So that goes to, things like the back panel, the shoulder straps / shoulder pads, whatever you want to call them, the hip belt. And then there's kind of a piece of the puzzle that's not necessarily visible, which would be like the internal frame. That's the support structure that really contributes to the ability of the pack to be comfortable, or as comfortable as we want it to be, because for a travel pack or any pack, like when you start loading it up with gear or whatever, and it starts filling up with weight, that weight typically will just ride down on your shoulders, which is very common to what I guess we found, or you even found before I got here, with like what was going on with other travel pack offerings. Is most of them you would just have all the weight on your shoulders. They would have hip belts that were just inadequate. They were just too small or too thin.
Little pieces of webbing.
Just not gonna really provide any kind of comfort or relief. So having a support structure in the form of an internal frame, and then having a properly built hip belt allows you to actually use the hip belt and put it where it's supposed to be, so that it will take some of the weight. But having the internal frame is pretty important, because if the pack is not stable and doesn't have any structure to it, you could have a really nice hip belt, but it really wouldn't get the full comfort level that having the internal frame provides. And that's because basically, think of the pack as like a non-rigid object that it's a bag that fills up with weight. The weight's just going to pile up at the bottom of the bag, or the bag's going to flex or squish down like this. So all that does is the weight stays on your shoulders. So having the frame in there, so that when you put the hip belt on, and having load lifter points above your shoulders, that really, once you put tension on those, it lifts the weight up off your shoulders and transfers the weight down to the hips where you want to carry it.
So for most of these packs that we were testing and using, and I mean, before we were trying to design this thing, we were just trying to use some of these packs for our own needs in traveling. And the frame, they either didn't have a frame at all, or the frame they had was too short to get any kind of lift off your shoulders and transfer down to your hips, or they had like a single stay, which I bent some of those pretty easily, just doing normal wear and tear usage. So there's definitely just a massive shortage in the frame itself, and then that hip belt as well, just a little strap and whatnot, or inadequate padding, or most of them were about half of this thickness here. And so half that thickness, you can see how that cut into you a lot more, and not actually want to hug your body and support that nearly as well. So that whole suspension system really solved that problem of how do you carry a load all day long comfortably, because when you're traveling, maybe you go on a day hike, maybe you actually go backpacking, or maybe you're just going through an airport, or you're coming from an airport to your destination, you have to go through some public transit, whatever it is, you end up putting that pack on for long periods of time, and you need it and want it to be as comfortable as possible. And I feel like we nailed that. We used a lot of our background with technical packs and load carry for backpacking, and applied that into this travel pack, which is probably the biggest differentiator when people first use our travel pack, is they can just tell right away how much more comfortable it is, especially when they are utilizing this hip belt, which you don't always have to. But
yeah, for sure. I guess that's a big advantage that we have, is like, as a company, we go backpacking all the time. I personally go backpacking on almost all the free time that I have. So, like you mentioned, we're committed to being comfortable with backpacks on our back, with not heavy loads, but like with a load of weight for an entire day. And so, we just apply those concepts and what we are confident makes something comfortable. And there's some different things that we have to accomplish at the same time. Like one of the things that I think is misunderstood is like hip belt thickness, right? So the thickness of the belt is not necessarily like the ultimate contributor or solution to comfort. So if this pad were, let's say, 30% more narrow in that dimension, but used twice as thick of foam, it's still not going to be as comfortable, because you want to achieve really good contact with the body. So having the hip belt wide enough so that it spreads all that contact and pressure around your torso, that's where the comfort comes from. Now, if the padding is too thick, it won't have that wrapping and that really good contact effect. So achieving the right balance of pad thickness, the width of the pad, that kind of really comes from like the backpacking experience and designing the backpacks for, you know, actual backpacking. But like Tayson said, this isn't like, we don't expect people that are going to use this every time they use it, every time they travel with the pack. We just wanted to have, if we're going to have the option to have a hip belt, it has to be not just an adequate hip belt, it has to be a very good, comfortable hip belt that anybody would be happy to use on a backpacking trip. And if they don't want to use it, then no harm, no foul, right? So,
yeah. So I think we've got a few questions jumping in here. So let me shift some focus here and maybe move us on to answer these specifics. First of all, we've got a Kickstarter specific question. He's mentioning the add-ons. They want to know, will we have the opportunity later to get the pack or accessories at a pre-sale discount price? So once the Kickstarter is ended.
Yes. So if you back it on Kickstarter, you'll have the ability to purchase what we call add-ons at a later point in time. If you want to purchase a second pack or a set of accessories or things like that, you will be able to do that if you back on Kickstarter at a better price point, and you'll do that a little bit later on. It won't be as exceptional as the pricing on the live Kickstarter, but it will be an option. So let's say you're like the pack right now is $200 on there. It might be $20 or $30 more, but it won't be full price either. So you will have the ability to add stuff on later on if you decide, hey, I actually do want the accessories or something like that. But if you're watching this live, you actually are going to be getting the accessories for free. So if you wanted a second set of accessories, you could add something like that on in what's called our pledge management tool. So where we collect like your address and where we're shipping the pack to and stuff like that, you can move around your order a little bit or add things to it. So,
but to maybe clarify for the backpack itself, the best discount you'll get will be by ordering sooner. So now is the best discount you're going to get, and the longer you wait, the less of a discount that there is that's going to be available.
Yeah, for sure, it'll be a much better discount to get it on the Kickstarter for sure. And the 2-pack is going to be the best deal throughout the entire Kickstarter as well. So.
there's some good questions. Should
Yeah,
we just start going
there's a
through?
question I saw about comfort, which was kind of on the topic we were on about the shoulder straps.
Yeah,
So-
which is, so this is, I believe, so Vera, that looks, I'm guessing that's a female. No, sorry if I'm wrong. She has a question, or that person has a question about the shoulder strap shape and how did female testers with top curves fare with this pack. I think Derek is probably the most appropriate person to answer this, not because he's a female.
Yeah, no, actually,
Talking about this curve here in the shoulder straps and how that's comfortable for both men and female.
so my wife and I, we've actually gone on a number of trips with this pack, both backpacking and traveling. And my wife has tried her other backpack, the Shadowlight, on some of her backpacking trips. And the KotaUL is actually her favorite pack currently, because of the comfort mainly. And so that includes those shoulder straps and the hip belt that Brigham and Tayson were talking about before, that really wide, really effective hip belt. My wife Maddie loves it. As far as comfort, especially for women, it really does the job well. It does it well for anyone, male or female, but that is her favorite pack because of the comfort. She doesn't have any issues with the chest strap or the shoulder straps at all. All of it fits and can adjust to fit her exactly how she wants it to feel, and really works well.
So to put it even, like, to round it off, when we go on company backpacking trips, this is the backpack she chooses to take because she finds it more comfortable.
Right.
Yep, super comfortable. So I saw another question on there about bear canisters. Let me refine this one.
What's the best way to carry a bear canister?
Yeah, who was that?
Glenn?
Glenn. So Glenn, you can fit a bear canister straight into the pack. The other method is to use the attachment straps, and I think we've got some footage of this in the Olympic trip that we did earlier this year. and on camera, I'm gonna forget where I put my straps apparently. But you can use those accessory straps to connect to the outside of the pack. Yep, they're lost. But essentially what we did is we actually just used them to connect it to this outside section right here of the pack for that bare canister. You could put it on top, you could put it on the bottom, but those straps are big enough to wrap around the outside of a bare canister. So that worked really well for us. We flew into Olympic National Park, well, it's Seattle, went to Olympic, picked up a bare canister from the, I don't know, Forest Service group there, the Park Rangers, and then attached that to the outside of the pack and worked really, really well. So you do have flexibility. We were able to attach it on different areas on the pack, so lots of options for stuff like that, as well as, you know, a tripod or something like that. If you were carrying something like that, it can come up through here and you can use those same attachment systems to secure it to the side of your pack.
Gigi wants to know, did you guys use these during your training for the Hardline Challenge?
No. Mainly because the training for the Hardline Challenge was a lot of running. So we were using fast packs a lot, or the shadow lights for more of the rucking style of stuff. We did use them through the whole summer, but not specifically for training purposes. I jokingly told the office that I was going to put a gym in the back of one of our units here and fill these up with weight, and you could just use the grab handles throughout the pack to ruck this around like what are those brands, like rucking is like a big thing right now in CrossFit, but you totally could. It's got grab handles everywhere, but no, we didn't use it for training, but maybe one day we'll play around with something like that.
Okay, another question we have is, do you have any of the accessories with you that you can show us?
We can go grab them.
I didn't bring, we could grab them.
In Unit C, we have some if we wanted to go grab some. This is the accessory strap, so I'll go over this really quick while we get a hold of some of those other ones.
So in the back, in the rack, bottom left box, there's a small box. There should be a set in a.
That's an edit.
Yeah,
In
unit.
the back of you.
Yeah.
Pack, rack,
Bottom right.
Bottom right, small box.
small box.
Okay, we're gonna try to get those for you on camera.
In the meantime, here's a good question, unless did you have something you're about to cover here?
I was gonna cover the accessory straps really quick, kind of went with the bare canister, so hopefully you can see this. This is the WireGate Duraflex hardware piece that you push this, pop that open, and then on the outside you have 12 different attachment points that you can slide this into and secure, and on the inside you have 12 more. So for instance, with a bare canister, I could slide this into this attachment point right here, lock that on, loop this around and connect it over here, and then it comes with 2 of these long straps and 2 shorter straps. So you could easily, like I say, strap stuff to the outside of this pack if you needed to for your specific trip. But the nice part about this is there's no straps on the outside of the pack when you don't need them. So it's a lot more clean. When you're going in and out of transit system or something like that, you don't have a bunch of straps hanging off the pack, but you have a ton of customizability, that's probably not a word, but when you do need those different straps. So, other question you're saying?
Yeah, so from a backpacking standpoint, this is Adam asking this question. How would this compare to a typical 45-liter backpack? Any features that you had to give up in order to make it versatile?
So from our backpacking standpoint, our backpacks are quite simple. Like they're ultralight backpacks that I would say this backpack, I don't think we actually did any less features. I mean, the pack is loaded with organization and pockets, really like massive zipper access, external zippered pockets.
I'd say the things that you have to give up from a traditional backpack, be one, we don't have exterior stretch mesh. So if you'd like, that would be a little bit harder. You'd have to use these to attach like your wet tent to it, which is totally an option. Actually, you were just on a trip where you did that, Derek, which we'll let him talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, you could use these, but you don't have the stretch mesh. We did not put pockets on the hip belt because this is a piece that's getting taken off and put it on depending on the type of trip. There's more pocketing throughout the whole pack, but that was one thing. And the other thing is that we could not put our shadow lights have a little bit taller frame. But in order to meet carry-on standards with airplanes, we had to shrink the frame about 2 inches. So it's a 22-inch frame, which is still a massive frame, and it's actually the biggest possible frame you can have for carry-on standards. So those are the main differences that come to my mind of what you give up. But it's not a whole lot, especially if you don't have a super tall torso. You're going to be extremely comfortable, still be able to get great load lift off of this pack, and you still have the ability to manage everything else.
So we have some comments saying the audio is gone. Can you guys hear us? Is anyone able to hear us? If you can, put it in the comments. Otherwise, we'll work on that.
Audio's enabled here.
It may be a spam thing.
Yes, the sound is gone. No, we cannot. I can hear you. Neil can hear us. Gigi can hear us.
Okay,
Spicy.
we're good.
Yeah,
Okay.
keep going. Mark him
It's
as-
their connection, if anything.
Yeah. Okay, so good questions. Any other questions that have popped in here, Derek or anyone?
Yeah, so we've got the accessories. We have some people
yes.
asking us to show them the accessories. So we actually have all 3 of them right here.
Okay, for starters, we'll go with, this is the DOP bag, the dry
Waterproof
toiletry
bag.
bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got a waterproof zipper on here, or water resistant, I guess. I don't know how you would say that. It's not.
Water resistant zipper.
Everything on the inside is seam tape. So this, like, if you have toiletries spill in here, they're not going to come out into the other contents of your bag. I was actually doing a little video for our closed Facebook group for Live Ultra members this morning, and it's kind of funny. It does also kind of lock in the scents. So when I opened mine up, I got a big waft of like the beard oil that I use. Yes, I use beard oil. So it does lock in scents as well as make sure this stuff doesn't spill. I really like the size of this, and it's super, super light. So even if this is maybe overkill for you in size, it's not a penalty. And then for everyone else, if you can't fit it in this, you need to lose some stuff, right? But it's really been kind of a perfect size. We've kind of dialed this in, and I've loved the size of this, and everyone that's tested it has loved the size. So
I think the dimensions for these are on the Kickstarter page, right?
yeah, they should be. You should be able to look at those for sure. This is the packing cube. So you'll see right here, it's got kind of a horseshoe zipper as well. That's going to fold down. This is roughly how thick it is, about 4 inches in depth, and it's a little bit taller than it is wide. Now, one of the cool things with this piece is if I snag one of the accessory straps, that these are included. This is not we call it an accessory strap, but these are included with your backpack no matter what, even if you don't purchase or get the other accessories. But what's cool about these is you can actually attach these, and there's 4 different loops around this pack. So if you wanted to, you can easily snug those in, use this as a sling, hang it, or you can actually put 2 of those longer straps on and use it as a full backpack. So it's a really versatile piece, but really it's just for organization and keeping things inside there. Another frequent use item for this is like shoes. If you got dirty shoes or something like that, can easily go in something like this. I'll let you talk about the dry bag.
Okay. So, I mean, it's a pretty simple piece. This is the roll top dry bag that we call it a compression dry bag because that's a very really good way to compress the contents of the bag is with a dry bag because it gets kind of like a vacuum effect. So as you put, you fill it up, and this is about a 20-liter dry bag. It's waterproof fabric, seam taped, and then it's a roll top, so it's a waterproof bag. Once you put the contents in there, you just you close it and roll it over once, and then you can either push the weight on it, or kneel down on it. That's the most effective way to get the best compression. But because it's only folded over one time, it lets the air out, so you squeeze all the air out, and then once you have all the air squeezed out, then you just roll it up 3 or 4 more times, and then buckle it shut. And it compresses really well to a point where like you can kind of mold it to take whatever shape you want to, but it also has a really large capacity. So when you don't use all the capacity, you just compress everything down, and it takes all the excess, takes it all in. It is designed specifically for the Shadowlight backpack, so the bottom shape of the bag it mirrors the bottom shape of the backpack.
Okay. You have a question
So-
on that right into?
Yeah, so while we're talking about the accessories, we've mentioned some of them are water resistant. I have a question about the pack in general. Michael wants to know, does the bag have Aqua Guard zippers?
No, it doesn't. And that was a deliberate choice. We really just find that these zippers, they're smoother, they're faster to operate, and they're lighter weight.
Yeah, and we're not taping the interior seams of the backpack, so having an AquaGuard zipper makes sense, because if you're going to use something like that, you'd want the whole backpack to be seam taped. So the fabric is waterproof, but we have not seam taped or used AquaGuard zippers.
Well, it's a water resistant fabric. It's not a waterproof fabric like the dry bag or the dot bag. It's not like a coated waterproof fabric. It's very water resistant.
Tony wants to know if that dry bag will be available on the website, and will we have multiple sizes?
The dry bag, as of now, there's just one size of the dry bag. And like I said, it's about a 20-liter dry bag.
It will be available on the website after the KotaUL campaign on Kickstarter ends, and we've shipped out all of those pre-orders, but that won't be for some time. To be able to order that from a regular website, you'll have to wait well into next year.
Yeah. One more thing too on the accessories is one thing that I've really liked about the way we've done our accessories is you do not need them for the pack, but they are really useful, and they're useful for different trips. So I often find myself using certain accessories for certain trips, leaving certain accessories home for different trips, and it just gives you a lot of versatility in the way that you're using the pack, which comes back to that, you know, what we really want to design with this pack is just something that could be used for every type of trip. And here shortly we'll dive into some use cases, but you know, whether we're taking it on a backpacking trip, a leisure trip, an international trip, whatever it is, these accessories can kind of tailor fit and customize it for different things. So there's some trips where maybe I want to use the dry bag for some of the waterproofing. Other trips where I want to use it for the vacuum seal nature. Sometimes I'm using the packing cube for organization. Sometimes I just don't need that packing cube. But there's the nice thing about them is they're really lightweight, and you can just use them or not use them depending on what they are. So that's why I like the full accessory pack or kit where you get all of them, because you're just going to find times where you're going to want to use one and not the other, and that's one of the beautiful things about this pack is it lets you customize it for your trip.
So we have another question about accessories, and it's specifically about the dry bag, and they're asking if you can fit the new 0 degree quilt in the bag.
Yes.
Probably two of them.
Actually, I have a good story about this from this last trip, if this is a good time to talk about that, where we actually did fit 2 and then some inside that dry bag.
Yeah, so for those of you that follow us on social media, Derek kind of did a social media takeover where in the stories on our social media accounts, he was taking you through his journey this last weekend. So tell us a little bit about what you guys went and did, and then how the pack applied to that.
Yeah, so Maddie and I, we went on this trip to the Smokies in North Carolina and Tennessee, and we flew out there just from our airport here, and all we took was the KotaUL backpack. And we ended up doing some backpacking overnight, hiking into some campsite in the backcountry. Also stayed in our car other nights and just kind of had our quilts, our OB sleeping pads, and pillows and things that we just kind of folded the seats down in the back. So we used this. We used the quilt, the pads, and the KotaUL backpack for this entire trip. While we were backpacking and hiked into the backcountry, it ended up raining on us quite a bit during the night. So we were a little bit concerned about getting our quilts wet, because this is the first night we were there, and we needed to be able to sleep in our quilts the rest of the trip. And so we had just one of the dry bags with us. So we put both quilts inside the dry bag along with pillows and a couple other things, and there was plenty of space, especially after you compress it down. The quilts themselves are really compressible, so it's pretty easy, and then the capacity of the dry bag itself is pretty spacious. And so, like Brigham mentioned, you can easily fit 2 of our 0 degree quilts. We had 15 degree quilts on this, but a 0 wouldn't have been any different. Inside of that dry bag, you compress them down, and they don't even take up half of the KotaUL capacity. Both of them, after the compressed, are still compressed pretty small. another point we did use these accessory straps that Tayson showed you earlier, is our tent was all wet. And like we mentioned before, there's not external pocketing or mesh or anything on the outside of this backpack, so you can't just stick it in a pocket and hope it dries out as you hike out the next day or anything like that. But you can strap it to the back. So that's what we did. We just used a couple of these straps and we strapped the wet tent to the back of the backpack and helped it dry out, and we didn't have to get everything that was inside my pack all wet. So that was one way we used it just 3 days ago, really. We just got back 2 nights ago and had a great trip. All we needed was with us on our backs, and it was great.
Yeah, it's a really good use case of how that you can use the pack. You know, fly in somewhere, backpack with it, go sightseeing. Derek's also got a really cool trip planned for next year, going to Finland. So some really cool applications and a really good way to use the pack and let it kind of customize for that trip. A couple other questions I wanted to jump into really quick. Spicy Tuna is asking how it would fit on people, smaller or shorter people. And well, you actually see that in the campaign video. I believe the females, especially in the campaign video, are quite small. I'm not sure exactly what their height is. You might know, Derek, but that's kind of what it would look like. Compared to me, when I wear it, it looks like more like it could be a day pack even. But you kind of get a range if you look around on some of these videos. Another question I saw here, which I thought would be a good one, is, thought I saw that the shoulder straps could be tucked away. Can you show how that would work? Thanks. If you actually will hand me that green bag, I think we'll see it just a little bit better. So I'll just show you really quick how this works. It's really quite easy. Down here you've got just a quick detachment system on that. And then at the top, you've also got this Duraflex buckle. Now you don't have to do this or not. I'm gonna loosen it for right now. And all you do is take it and tuck it straight down into here. And if you want everything out of the way, then, which you can get that farther, sorry. If you want everything out of the way, you can quickly buckle this and tuck that in as well. So pretty dang simple to get those shoulder straps out of the way, and when it's all done, very flat, very seamless, nothing's hanging or catching on the external of this pocket. So good question, wanted to cover that. What else? We got other questions.
Will this bag fit as an overhead bin or in an overhead bin on a plane as a carry-on?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've all used it as that.
I would say that
times.
I even have gotten away most trips as using it as my personal item on a plane. Maddie and I, we're pretty minimalist, and we kind of push limits, and it's a little bit of a barrier that we're pushing with this, but we don't really usually pay even for a carry-on, and we just take the KotaUL with us as a personal item, and it'll fit underneath the seat decently well. Not great. It's bigger than a normal day carry backpack, but there's absolutely no problem fitting it in the overhead bin or as a carry-on item.
Yeah. Going on to some other questions here. Can you elaborate on the quilt? Looking for a small light quilt for stage. There's been a lot of talk about quilts on here. Definitely want to look at those. We redesigned those this last summer, I think, is when we pushed out that redesign. But yeah, they're warmer. They fit around you better. They eliminate a lot more drafts. So if you do want information on quilts, I'd head over there and look at those. We honestly, internally at this point, almost all of us in the office are almost exclusively using quilts. So definitely a good option, especially for what you're saying with ultra trail racing. I definitely would be using a quilt for something like that. Other questions. As a travel bag, would it have RFID protection in the pocket? No, we did not focus on putting that into the pocketing. Looking at some of these other questions. Is there women's specific sizing for the bag? No, but we have extensively tested this with women, and they've really, really liked the fit and use of it. Not sure. You also asked if there was a blue bag in the video. No, the two colors that we're going to have are going to be black and this green right here. So as of right now, those are the two color options that we're going to be offering. Okay. Any other questions that we missed from maybe up top? Or we can jump into some more use cases just of the pack. So keep questions coming in. We can definitely show you the detailed aspects of the pack on this live stream. We do want to answer all of the questions that we can. But yeah, maybe I'll share really quickly another use case scenario that I used this pack for that worked really, really well. Back in July, me and my wife wanted to kind of do a getaway for a weekend. So we grabbed the KotaUL backpacks, we flew up to Montana, we rented a car, and we drove about 2 hours out of Bozeman, Montana to this little Airbnb cabin that we'd rented. And we spent time there, but not only while we were there, we had time to do things. So we went rafting, we went did some horseback riding, and I also even just threw in like my fly fishing rod. And what was nice, and we did some hiking, obviously. But what's nice is that the Kota, even though we fly in with this piece, it can pack things like my gear and my fly rod. I can go fly fishing on the river with my fly rod, with the KotaUL. We also went backpacking, packed lunches and stuff. And because it has that ability to compress down, it really can take this from a full-size travel bag like this, and you can go down the side on the interior and do those compression toggles, which I'll quickly kind of show you what that looks like, so that when we're doing these day hikes and these smaller kind of things out of a base camp per se, you remove half of the total size of the pack here, and it makes it look a lot more, well, it makes it so it's not so big and floppy for sure, but also it just shrinks the side profile of this a lot, and it works really well for doing day type of stuff, even with traveling like that. So that was definitely a use case scenario that we did when we flew up into Montana, had a great time, did a bunch of different activities, and were able to use that KotaUL for all those different type of trips. So
I have a couple more questions that have come in since. One is the pack waterproof or water resistant? And that's Erica asking.
Water resistant.
Okay, we did cover that already, Erica. So if you do want a little bit of a longer explanation, then you can go ahead and watch after the live stream ends and watch back some of those other explanations we've given on that. Other question is, do you know what the maximum weight the backpack can hold before it becomes uncomfortable to haul around for an average person?
Pretty good question. Probably 35 pounds. I mean, that's going to be very variable depending on the person's stature, their size, whether or not they're using the hip belt or you know. But I think 35 pounds is a very, very safe number. We for sure had more weight than that in it, and it really does not become uncomfortable. So probably safe answer would be 35 pounds, but don't be afraid to put more weight in that. It's not going to hurt it.
yeah, I would definitely second that. We've tested it. I've used it with more weight than that. Still extremely comfortable at 35 pounds plus. A big part of that too is just making sure you're using the pack right, making sure you have the hip belt in the right locations, and you're getting that load lift off your shoulders, which we can definitely put out some more content on. We probably need to talk about that again, but yeah, it's really going to be comfortable all the way up past 35 pounds in my opinion. But also if you're going over 35 pounds, probably should watch some of our other videos and learn how to live a little more ultralight. So
Erica has another question related to the KotaUL, but also just adventure travel. She says, do you have tips on flying with hiking poles? Since they're only allowed in check-in, I wasn't sure if you knew a way to work around that.
It's something that we're honestly navigating ourselves a little bit. I do know that you can use them as a mobility tool, and you can get them onto your aircraft, but not everyone's going to be comfortable kind of going through that method. They let tripods on and different things, so if we get more information on that through our own use case, we'll definitely report back on that. But that is probably the biggest con right now, or tough thing to work around for us is the trekking poles. We love to use trekking poles, and some of our shelters rely on them, so it's something we've had to work around a little bit.
But it's not a hopeless cause. On this last trip that I was on with my wife, just this last weekend, we did see somebody that had trekking poles with just a personal item backpack heading through the airport. And so I don't know whether or not they were stopped in security or not, but there may be a possibility that there's a way to do that. They definitely didn't have any check-in luggage with them, just a small backpack, just like I said, a personal item and some trekking poles. So again, like what Tayson said, that we're definitely looking into maybe some ways that we can work around that.
I've also seen a lot of trekking poles on airplanes, but I don't know.
One thing that my wife and I just did, I don't think this will work in every scenario, but we used a car rental app called Turo, and that's just where, just private individuals will rent out their cars, kind of like Airbnb to you for a specific amount of time. And we actually were in contact with our Turo owner, the one that owned the car that we were going to use this weekend just to get around the park and to our trailheads and things. We asked him, hey, what solutions do you have? And he offered us his tent. So rather than having to bring a tent and poles and trekking poles for a tent, we just actually borrowed a tent. So I mean, there's
the
different
dice
things
on
you can get creative with. That's definitely not going to work every time, but
That's a Derek move right there. Worth the risk. I like it. No, but you can definitely get creative. Turo's a pretty cool app too. We've used it. It's really good for travel. Okay, we got a few more questions rolling in here. Brigham, I'll let you answer this one. The hip belt says it's 28 to 45 inches. We sell hip belt extenders for bigger people.
Right now, we don't have any plans for selling a separate extender. However, the hip belt is designed to extend itself, so it's basically two pieces attached via Velcro. So you get about 1.5 inches of extension on the hip belt itself. This will tuck behind the back pad, and then it attaches underneath the back pad that way. So the pad or the hip belt does expand or extend. So you'll get, like I said, about another 1.5 inches of hip belt.
Yeah, and I'll kind of loosen this up as loose as it'll go, just so you guys can see what this looks like fully extended. But good question.
And you could, like in reverse, you've also got some reduction in hip belt, so you can kind of tighten it up from the default setting.
Yep. It does have, this two-part system right here, which also does add a lot to the overall comfort of that when it's, when this section is pressing up against your stomach. So, okay. If you're going on a backpacking trip, when would you choose the KotaUL over Shadowlight or vice versa? Thanks for your guys' stuff. Okay. Who wants to tackle that one?
I have some thoughts on it. So first and foremost, the Shadowlight backpack is built for hiking, right? It wasn't designed with travel in mind at all. It was made to be the best it can be for hiking. The KotaUL, that's built for both. It's built for travel, it's built for hiking, it's built for adventuring. So for me, if I'm backpacking and I'm not traveling anywhere really, I'm always going to use the Shadowlight backpack because it was built for that. And for me, it is the most comfortable and most capable. We just did this summer, you went to Highline Trail, it took about a week for a trip, especially like that, multiple days on the trail. I'm going to be taking the Shadowlight for sure. If it's just a one-nighter, maybe even a two-nighters, then maybe I would take the KotaUL. Especially if I have to fly somewhere to get out to the trail I'm gonna be on. That's me personally. My wife, on the other hand, she just finds the KotaUL to be more comfortable for her. So she'll use it because it feels better on her with the way the straps are and the back panel and the hip belt. So it really just depends on your own personal preferences. I don't think that the KotaUL for me is something I would take on big multi-day backpacking trips though.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with most of what you said. I think it comes down to like the thought process that I would use or that I do use is, my lifestyle and like what type of trip am I doing? So like Derek said, if I'm flying into a place and I'm going to be a tourist for several days, but I also want to include like a backpacking trip inside that trip somewhere else or somewhere in that trip, whether it's 1 or 2 nights. This is a great pack for that, and that's kind of the scenario that I would choose to take this pack because I also want the backpack to work well as a travel pack, as a piece of luggage, as a car pack, for the other 3 to 5 to 7 days of the trip. So, and then also lifestyle, for somebody that is more of a motorized traveler that occasionally does a backpacking trip. So Most of the time they're driving around or taking a bus system and they're flying a lot, then this is a really good option. But if that person still likes to get out and do an overnight backpacking trip, it's a really good option. Another scenario would be, the kind of typical backpacking Europe, where I've never done it, but what I understand is, people like to go from hostel to hostel or hut to hut, Airbnb to Airbnb, where they do walk around a lot. They carry everything on their pack. Like, this is really great for that, because now you're going to be on train systems and bus transit systems where you're going to be moving that pack up and down, moving it in and out of overhead bins, in and out of cars and taxis and buses and stuff like that. So because of the outside of the pack being void of lots of webbing, it's very clean, streamlined. Like, that's a really good use case for that.
Yeah, I think these guys did really well, but if it's 100% a backpacking trip, then I'm taking a backpack. If there's any elements of traveling involved or transport, then I would switch to the KotaUL. So hopefully that kind of helps, but yeah, I mean, if it's, that's pretty much how I would designate it. Pretty good question just popped in. What is the weight of the KotaUL compared to the Shadow Light? So Shadow Light is just under 2 pounds, almost right at 2 pounds, whereas the KotaUL is 2 pounds 13 ounces.
Yeah.
So not quite a pound heavier than the Shadow Light. So it's not that much heavier. That's actually, again, that's one of the main focuses that we wanted with this pack, was to just keep it super light. So when you compare this to other travel packs out there, most of those are going to be starting closer to 5 pounds and then go up from there. And so really we're just a whole lot lighter. And for us, coming from the ultralight background, we wanted our packs to be around 10 pounds to begin with, 10, 12 pounds or something. So having a pack that starts at 5 or 6 or 7 pounds was just way too heavy right to begin with, and really bleeds into the comfort and usefulness of the pack as well. Especially if you're trying to use it as a versatile piece where you might be, compressing the sides and using it for a little day hike or something like that. You don't want a 6 pound pack for a little day hike. So a lot of versatility in the pack, and the weight just plays into that.
What I think is super cool about the KotaUL, with that really light weight, like Jason mentioned, a lot of other travel specific packs being 5 pounds or more, some of them, they've got great features for traveling, but not really for carrying that same travel pack around all day. Even in the airport with some of those other travel packs, you'll get a sore back, and there's just not a good structure and with the frame, and it really just isn't comfortable to travel with those. But they do have great features, like they look sleek on the outside. There's not straps and all this stuff that will snag as you're sliding in and out of an overhead bin. A lot of them have security systems on the zippers and different pockets. The KotaUL has all of that, but it's actually comfortable all day long. You can hike all day, you can stand all day in airports, or moving through transit systems, and be super comfortable. The best way that I like to think about the KotaUL is it's got all the best features of a travel pack that you really want, but the DNA of a hiking backpack, which makes it super comfortable.
Yeah. So we're going to try to hop off here in about 10 more minutes. So questions that you have, make sure you get them in. I just did pull up the Kota page on Kickstarter. We're now at $93,400 in pre-sales. So over 400 backers have now pledged for this. So we should cross over that $100,000 mark here around lunchtime, which is here shortly for us here in Utah. But a lot of support. Definitely exciting to just see this campaign continue to grow. A lot of amazing design work has gone into this. We have some really good deep dives on this. We actually just released a brand new YouTube channel called the Live Ultralight Podcast. And it's just taking our podcast, and we're starting to film some of those episodes. And me and Brigham did like an hour and 40-minute breakdown of this pack, where we went through tons and tons and tons of details. And so if you want to know those details, those things that we can't really explain in a quick 5-minute video on Kickstarter, you're going to want to go and check that out. Again, that's the Live Ultralight Podcast channel on YouTube. And you can watch that breakdown right there. And we get pretty detailed, and you'll see how much design work goes into this backpack. Every inch of this thing is very deliberate. every curve, every corner, every volumized taper and pocket, the internal mesh system and how you can use that or not use that and how that plays in was very, very strategic. And to me, a backpack, by the time it gets done, really feels like a piece of art. And I think that that's exactly what this pack has become to me, is just a piece of art, and how everything bleeds together and how well it's all come together. We've tested this for a long time now. Gone through a lot of different samples, a lot of different prototypes, tweaking little things, dialing things in. We've done a lot of external testing as well. There's some people that we work with that have tested this as well. And so you can probably go out and find some of the things and comments and stuff that they've put out there as well. But we've got a lot of feedback that's gone into this pack, and it's really fun to be able to hit go on this and see people show up and start ordering this pack. So, okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. Let's kind of go through some of these questions again, and then we'll start wrapping this up.
So I think one of the big questions here, Travis is asking more about the manufacturing. And he says, with materials being in short supply, how are you planning to keep the supply up on this and packs like the Shadow Light?
Great question. First off, that's part of why we wanted to do it on Kickstarter, is with the Shadow Light, we had more demand than we really expected. And so when we do it on Kickstarter, we get to see that demand during the first initial run of production, and then make decisions after that to try to keep things in stock. So essentially for us and our partners in manufacturing, what this all equates to is just longer lead times. What maybe used to take us 6 months might be taking us 8 or 10 or 12 months now to produce. And so by doing it on Kickstarter, it allows us to go and place additional purchase orders, additional runs of manufacturing, and try to keep this in stock the best we can. And that's really powered by Kickstarter and being able to see the level of interest in this. For the Shadow Lights, to be honest, we had an extremely bad stroke of luck with those, where we had some shutdowns from the pandemic for massive amounts of time right as our Shadow Lights were trying to leave the factory. So they're currently in transit, and as you probably know as well, the port situation is pretty rough right now. It will remain rough for the remainder of this year. So just got really unlucky with the Shadow Lights, and also didn't realize the level of demand. Hopefully we can curb that and do better at mastering that, because we're doing it on Kickstarter, and can get some of that data a little bit more upfront.
I would also add, what are the things we're doing to be proactive about that? So, for example, with this specific pack, the production process has already begun. All fabrics have already been ordered. Like, the process has already begun. So we're not, waiting until the Kickstarter is over before we even initiate anything. So that's the proactive way that we go about doing this. So that kind of takes care of that. And then also, when it comes to whether it's this pack or the Shadow Light, we're projecting farther forward and placing orders farther ahead than we normally would. So to answer your question about, keeping the supply up, whether it's this pack or the Shadow Light, those are the things that we're doing within our control, is ordering farther out, and like we're placing another order before we even receive the first order, that type of thing. So, again, to reiterate, like with this pack, the production process has already begun. The logistics, the things that are out of our control, with how long a ship sits outside a port, like that's outside of our control. But we're doing everything within our control to keep the supply as current as possible.
I do think that we will continue to have better results in 2022. Honestly, we've learned a lot, and we've also just continued to develop better relationships and better systems internally to order farther and farther out. So yeah, we'll do our best there. There's 2 questions here I kind of wanted to end on. Curtis asked if this is an everyday pack. We do not market or sell it as an everyday pack, although personally, I use this every day. I bring my laptop into the office. I actually go to the gym with it. The days that I'm going to the gym, and I shower at the gym, so I'm bringing clothes and a towel, and it just works really, really well for me for an everyday pack. Plus, then when the weekend comes, maybe we're doing some traveling, headed out of town, seeing family. All I gotta do is throw in a change of clothes and I'm out the door. For some of these other guys, they're not using it as an everyday pack, but I do, and we don't really market it as an everyday pack, but that's gonna be a personal question for you. The other one is from Glazard. He's asking if we can quickly run through the pocketing system. He said it was a little bit hard to see on the Kickstarter, like all of the pocketing system. So I want to quickly do that. I'm going to go super fast. We do have other videos that you could see a deeper dive on, but I'll use this one. This one kind of has just a sleeping bag in here, honestly, to show the shape. But this pocket right here, you're going to have a drop pocket right there. And then on this side of the pack, you're going to have a zippered pocket with organization inside, and then a deep carry is what we call it, second zippered pocket on the inside front of this. So that's just the first pocket. Now, if you want the details on those, definitely watch the different videos we have, but just to give you a high level overview, there's that. On the top of this, we've got this horseshoe pocket. On the inside of this, there is a zippered mesh pocket again. So if you use it, it stretches out. If you're not using it, it just sits there and you can't really see it. And then right here, you actually got a guarded zipper, so you can tuck these through if you want to lock it with some additional webbing loops in there. So there's two pockets in this top portion, and then just the big cavity. And then if you open up the entire pack here, you're going to see a few different pocketing systems that we have. So right here, this is a really useful pocket. This is again, another zippered mesh pocket with volume built into it. So it's pleated down here so that this can stretch out. But again, if you're not using it, it's just going to hug up against this panel. But you can fit a pair of shoes in here or other items. And then on each side, so I'll just pop this out for now. On each side of this, you'll also have two drop pockets that go all the way down to the bottom. So you can see it's about to my elbow when my hand is in there. And then here you do have a padded laptop sleeve that is also raised off the bottom. You've got the long-term storage compartment. That's where the frame is. That's typically where we'd advise you to put the waist belt if you're not going to be using it for a while. So like on everyday carry, you don't really need that waist belt, for instance. So I'm keeping mine back there almost at all times. And then the last pockets would be these side pockets. These are volumized. So if you kind of look at the bottom, you'll see that there's volume in these, which means they don't push into the pack when you're using them. There's also webbing here. So if you're having like a taller water bottle or something like that, you can use that webbing. It's going to keep things in there. So that's just a really quick run through on all the pocketing. Hopefully that gives you some perspective as you look at the other videos where we go in much more detail on it. So
I will add one thing. If you do want to see anything a little bit slower or more up close, make sure you go back to the Kickstarter page where these are currently available on pre-order. There's a lot of images and a lot of detailed breakdowns of each of those features and the organization options that you can see, as well as, like Tayson mentioned, a video where he does go through all those features even more in depth, and I would say a little bit slower than we just did as well. So definitely go back to that Kickstarter page. There's a lot of good resources there.
Yep. So I just threw a link in the chat. If you want to click on that, that'll take you over to the Kickstarter. We're able to find those videos that Eric was just talking about. They're going to be a little bit lower on the page, but we do go in really good detail on all those different pocketing systems. So, okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for joining us on this live video. It's a lot of fun to come on here, answer questions, comments. We're going to try to do this a little bit more and make live video kind of a fun thing that we do periodically. So, thanks for joining us. Head over to Kickstarter, check out the work that we've been doing here, and we'll see you on the other side.